Major funding for NJ Spotlight News is provided in part by NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years. From NJ PBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of NJ Spotlight News. I'm Joanna Gagis. We continue our journey through public art across the state with our digital documentary series, Painting Community. The latest episode takes us to New Brunswick and tells the story of artist Albertus Joseph and his mural depicting the racial divide between New Brunswick and North Brunswick dating back to the 1970s and how the area has changed over time. This is the first in a series planned for New Brunswick, illustrating scenes from the community's shared history. Take a look.
So this is a fat cap. See the gap there is really wide? There's like a slit there. So that's how you know it's a fat cap. Spray comes out wider. And there's all different types of caps with spray paint, right? And you can see the same thing here. You have the hole there and that little tiny little slit right next to it. That's how you know it's a skinny cap. But the skinnies like to clog and it's cold. See how much more paint's coming out? So that's a fat cap. We're all like limited editions. I'm only gonna make but so much art. What's the point of being an artist in today's climate? Art and life are one and the same. You're constantly composing. The experiences that I draw on the most are the negative ones, or the perceived negative ones. I like to do graffiti like in the 80s. I was in high school, I was a young kid, totally illegal, outside of something I would normally do. And I got caught by the cops. They roughed me up, they sprayed the spray paint out in my hair, they kicked my butt. So that's why I don't do anything bad, because every time I do something bad, I get caught. I have the worst luck in the world. It's far better on the heart and the stress levels to do it legally, because then you can put a lot more into it. As a kid, my father moved us to Suriname, South America. So I lived in the rainforest. We moved to Plainfield, New Jersey. I had considered it, but who considers being an artist when you're 18 years old and you don't have any examples of artists that are successful or making a living? I get into Rutgers, into the engineering program. I almost fail out. I changed my major to art. And I haven't stopped since. The more experiences you subject yourself to, the more you have to draw from, the more people you talk to, the more you have to draw from. Life is not univocal. I don't drink and I don't smoke, but I understand addiction because I know when something grabs you. How you can't shake it's like a monkey on your back, you know? It's like constantly buzzing in your head. Everything you see, you're framing as, oh, look at that color, look at that skyline, you know? And you're seeing these things through rose-colored glasses, you know? I'm sure you do it, sir. Yeah, you do. You're like, oh, that's a good shot over there, because if I was over there, I would just totally take that. I don't do clubs, I don't do bars, I don't do any of that stuff. Because I'd rather be home making art. Everything is a distraction if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
We're here in front of Memorial Stadium, where New Brunswick High School's football team plays. We are in the final lap of getting our most recent mural completed. Collab's mission is to create projects and programs that directly connect our local community with artists who create really beautiful, provocative work. We'll typically advance a project 2 years or more. We've been working with Rutgers University's Department of American Studies to document the historic district split between New Brunswick and North Brunswick Township back in 1973. There was a displacement of the historic Black community, and they've largely left the city. And what we do have now is a new generation of Latino immigrants coming from Central America and Mexico.
There was a breakup between the two municipalities right after the civil rights movement. Basically, everybody that lived in North Brunswick was of one persuasion. Everybody that lived in New Brunswick was another persuasion. The mural depicts the oral testimonies that were given. It's about a guy teaching younger Latinos about old New Brunswick.
The reason why things like this take so long is the narrative is complicated. There's a lot of love for this area. There's a lot of history for this area. It's really exciting. In one way, it is an ending of a process and a project, but because of the future plans for this facade, it's also the beginning of a very long, exciting process. And essentially, we're going to be spending the next decade planning out new installations that are going to document the history of the city, going all the way back to indigeneity, and then leaving the last couple of panels open for someone for the next 50 years to decide what should be designed.
It's kind of an honor to be invited into somebody's space, specifically in New Brunswick, and I'm not being paid to say this. The people at Collab Arts go above and beyond. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved. Most of it I understand. They have to make sure it doesn't upset the denizens or the people of that neighborhood, and you have to make sure it's not offensive, gang-related, or violent. So then you go from like limitless and your world starts shrinking. So any idea you have that's outside of the box, you have to think of a witty way of saying something or hiding something in the work.
We try not to shy away from social justice messages, and those have led to some questions or points of tension, but never in a way that has created an obstacle from us doing work in the future.
You feel like you're in a box because you have to behave yourself. And artists don't like to behave themselves. You see just how much you can get away with. Artists don't like to be marginalized. You have to work within the lines. So this is sort of like a, like I'm gonna write what I wanna write. It's sort of like my graffiti kind of background creeping in. Basically what you do is you mark up the wall and then you use that as points of reference. I'm gonna superpose an image over the wall, and then all the letters from the poem are guidelines to where the lines of like the face, the eyebrows, the nose, like the contour of her chin, and I could just sketch it right out. This one, it's just a poem that just always stuck with me. It's very poignant. Sometimes I put a song up there. I could have just wrote A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. Sometimes I do that because I just need to mark the wall up. The last time I wrote, it was Shakespeare, butt soft, light through yonder window breaks, because I'm a hopeless romantic, I think. They didn't like it. At first I got the cops called on me, and he was like, we got a call that somebody's writing poetry in the wall, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. Cop and I got a good laugh, and then I got more calls, and then I got a visit from a security guard from across the street, and then I got jeers and looks from the people across the street. So transfers, it'll be gone in like a day. Who goes to deface something with a machine, with caution tape? Like, who does that? So then the cops are like, hey, that's got to come off the wall. It's gone on up to as high as it can go, and they're threatening, like, canceling the project.
With the city, you're sort of putting the plane together while you're flying in certain respects, where you push on what is acceptable and people come along with you to a certain extent.
It's something to laugh about. I am sorry that I made people uncomfortable, but isn't that the purpose of good art? Is to make people uncomfortable and get them to talking and maybe engage, maybe go home and talk to your kids about what that says.
I think there was a little bit of curiosity with this project and process, simply because it's a new mural in an area that hasn't really seen them before in the city. It's on property that is very meaningful and important to a lot of community members. And it's directly across the street from the middle school, which was the historic high school that the story that we talk about, this district split, references. But when you start to engage the fuller, larger community, questions come up, and we're always happy to have conversations once those happen.
But I get it. This isn't my neighborhood, and you should be aware of what people in that neighborhood want. It's a privilege to be invited into somebody's home, right? I think public art is absolutely necessary. There's this need to be a part of something, especially to show inclusion for the people that live there. The oral poem that's going to go on the bottom part, that was written by a middle schooler from across the street getting ready to go to high school. She wanted to be represented and feel like she's part of the community. And that's really why I'm doing the mural, because I love the poem. It's an honest take. High school's a microcosm of everything. When you're capable of being anything you want to be, do not let others dictate your fate and write your story. Be a shield that protects others. Here is where your story begins, because this is where you're supposed to be. I like that she made a feeling of anxiety and turned it into something positive. How more artistic can you get than that? We should be conscious, but conscious has a very high cost. I quit every day. Something inside of me says, I don't need this. There's like this whole mountain of stuff that happens outside, and then you have to deal with the bureaucracy and the red tape and the feelings. Day in and day out, the struggle is real. And I do it all again because I've worn many hats, and this is the most fulfilling by far. Street art does have a purpose, like it really does feel good. It's a multi-tiered escapism. It's a window or doorway to like a Zen experience. Everything quiets down. It's rewarding. You are bringing some awareness to the citizens that they are being considered.
To a certain extent, you can look at a city as a canvas. There's always more to do. And that's sort of how I feel about New Brunswick. I see really great work that I love, and I'm always excited about the next opportunity.
In face of all the other pressures that we have to deal with, mortgage, politics, religion, you have to juggle what really gets you going. And what resonates within you is, it's a personal struggle.
This mural project has highlighted the power of art to create conversation and increase awareness in a community. I'm joined now by the artist himself, Albertus Joseph. Albertus, so good to have you with us. Thanks for being here. You worked on this project in New Brunswick called the Neighborhood Revitalization Mural. What was the inspiration behind that project?
It was in commemoration of the 50 years of separation of two municipal school districts, North Brunswick and New Brunswick, in 1973. You
approached that by creating the vision of a storyteller. You yourself are a storyteller. Mm-hmm. How did you tell that story in such a simple picture? And not simple in terms of the art, but just simple in terms of how you kind of communicate this major historic divide in one mural.
Well, it was actually a collaboration of sorts with the team at Collab Arts and myself and two or three, I think 3 people. So we were bouncing ideas off of each other and then trying to find the imagery that would fit the story and all the work that they did before. Community outreach and talking, within the community to see what would fit that.
And when we look at that picture, what are we looking at? What are you telling us right there?
Well, the story is that the older generation of New Brunswick welcoming in, teaching the newer generation about the history of the school districts.
I love the process for you of the graffiti as part of kind of your framework of the image that you want to create. And of course, it's fun to watch. You have to undo the graffiti in this experience. Why graffiti? Why do you approach it that way?
I guess it's a little bit of angst. It's something I kind of put it down there to be positive, but graffiti is looked at very negatively. I like the juxtaposition between the two ideas, writing something very positive, but it being very negative. At the same, the collision of ideas.
These paintings and these painting community projects really focus on public art. What is public art to you?
Public art. Public art is anything that the public is comfortable with, whereas just opposed to studio art, where you're trying to make people think, or the goal is to make people uncomfortable. But
Is that your goal?
In my work, in order to force a conversation. So public art is a lot more accepting and thoughtful, thought-provoking, but safe.
So in your work, if it's not for public consumption, your goal is to provoke in a way.
Yes, to bring about something, through shock and awe, or to show differences, or to make some kind of commentary on some kind of idea or feeling that I'm having at
Explain that a
particular
little more.
time.
Give us an example of the types of conversations you try to create.
Within myself or within the public?
Within yourself, in your artwork.
Well, life is a struggle, dealing with current events and internal events, trying to reconcile the two, and then at the same time doing something seemingly innocuous and not connected to anything, but yet it is. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
And that there's a huge burden put on the artist to represent life in the present, or wherever they're creating. Yet that burden's also that realization's also felt by the artist as a burden.
So when you take that and you bring it into a public space, how do you tone it? How do you create it palpable but digestible?
Well, you kind of dumb it down a little bit. You make it simple. You make it easily readable. You don't want to be too cryptic, even though I love being cryptic. I love all kind of cryptic stuff in there,
Give us an example in this New Brunswick painting. What's cryptic there?
Well, what was very cryptic was the transfer, how I did the graffiti in the beginning, and then I did the painting on top of it. The graffiti was from a poem, a very positive poem, but it was received very negatively because it was seen as graffiti. So I kind of love, I can't say why, but I don't know. I just loved the drama of it, It created something that just got me going,
So it got you going, but it got the police going as well. It got the community going. What did they make you do there?
They made me paint it out, and then only add what as I went along, instead of doing the whole wall. And I knew that might be contentious, but.
Is that the fun part for you, being a
Absolutely,
little contentious?
Yeah.
You say that graffiti is a selfish art form.
Yes.
Explain that.
My graffiti friends are gonna not like this, but in terms of what it is, it's a text, It's typographical. It's text. It's rather self-serving because most graffiti artists do different versions of their own name or their street name or whatever cred name they're using. And it's reproduced over and over and over. And then there's the element of legal walls versus illegal walls, the euphoria or the fun that they have in doing something that's illegal, or,
But you take that and you try to spin it into something that's positive, and it's a part of your public art.
Yeah, because as a street artist, I only do legal walls. And I only delved in graffiti as a kid for a very, very short period of time. I got snapped out of that real quick. And not to say there's no money to be made, or not to say that there's not any money to be made in graffiti, but there's a lot more money, and it's a lot more lucrative to be a studio artist, or because it's more long-lasting.
You've done similar projects to this New Brunswick mural in other regions. You've done Brooklyn and the Bronx. Mm-hmm. What inspires your work when you're looking at a wall and you're deciding how to make this artwork that's going to be consumed by the public?
That's a good question. I usually whatever I have planned goes out the window as soon as I get to the wall. And then I usually, if it's like a festival, there's other art, or I have some interactions with people on the street, then I try to go with something that's more, I don't know, whatever the feeling is at the time.
Representative of that community?
Representative of the community, conscious of the community. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, you know.
Do you scrap it and start over?
I just do, yeah.
Your backstory is really interesting. You were born in New York, moved to Suriname at the age of 5, where your father grew up, then came back to New York for a short time, then to Jersey.
Yep.
How did those experiences shape who you are right now?
Wow, yeah. To this day, it's profound. Having been a little boy from Queens, moving into the rainforests of Suriname, even though we lived on the outskirts of Paramaribo, which is the capital city of Suriname, but then speaking English at home. So I was a bilingual in another country, you know, and then I was an American, dirty American, yeah, it was quite the experience growing up, seeing the rainforest as a New Yorker, and then, you know, finally getting comfortable and having to leave because of the political climate, and then coming back to New York. And
you also, originally, you say your dad was your hero, and you tried to follow in his footsteps, but it just wasn't your calling. And eventually you had to walk away from that and find your passion, which was art. Explain how you got there. What was it about art that finally hooked you?
Well, my mom was an artist, so we did art in the house. It was a normal thing. I thought everybody did. I think most kids do it in the beginning, you know, but we just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then I had older brother and sister that were, you know, older than me, so they're better than I was. So it was a little bit of a sibling competition. So, you know, you just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it.
But when did you know this would be your career?
When I flunked out of college. Almost,
at Rutgers University, right?
0.9 GPA. I was like, you know, I don't know, you know?
And you said, engineering's not for me, I'm moving to art. How did your dad take that?
Well, we were watching the World Cup, and I was nervous, and I you know, was waiting for, you know, soccer. There's just like no, you know, you have to wait till halftime to get a break. So I was hoping that his team was going to win, or, you know, he'd be in a good mood. And when I had my chance, I told him, and he just kept looking at the television, and he goes, if that's what you want to do, do it. And it was like a weight, like, taking off. I was like almost having an epiphany, you know, like, wow, it was that easy, you know? He was so accepting of it, which I did not. My father's a very unpredictable man, but...
Let me ask you this. When you look at the work that you've done, and you look at the work that you continue to do or plan out, do you see art as a form of public service?
Yes.
How?
To bring many ways. To bring awareness to certain things, to beautify neighborhood, to bring awareness to cultural relevance, civil responsibilities, you know, the list goes on about, you know, being a patriot, or finding some connection, or beautifying a neighborhood, et cetera.
And specifically in this New Brunswick project, what do you hope people who walk by, passers-by, take away from the work?
Well, that's a difficult one, because it's not a gotcha kind of a mural. It's more of a historical learning thing. So the ideology behind it is softer, but it's really meant for the kids across the street, which are the middle school about to go into the high school. The poem on there is from a middle schooler at the time. I'm sure she's in high school now. So it's really about those children feeling comfortable in their newfound home, or their home out away, you know.
Their home away from home.
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't have any more time, but I really appreciated having this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for us. You can check out the Painting Community documentary series at mynjpbs.org. I'm Joanna Gagis for all of us here at NJ Spotlight News. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child.
NJM Insurance Group has been part of New Jersey for over a century. We support our communities through NJM's corporate giving program, supporting arts and culture-related and nonprofit organizations that serve to improve the lives of children, rebuild communities, and help to create a new generation of safe drivers. We're proud to be part of New Jersey. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.
Have some water.
Look at these kids.
There, how are you?
What do you see? I see myself. I became an ESL teacher to give my students what I wanted when I came to this country. The opportunity to learn, to dream, to achieve, a chance to belong and to be an American. My name is Julia Toriani Crompton, and I'm proud to be an NJEA member.